Welcome to our channel. This is JC Rock and Metal Reviews. My name is John, and today I have a new album review by the band Greta Van Fleet. The name of the album is Battle at Garden's Gate. So before I begin, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. I do rock and metal reviews, rankings, and more. So before I begin, I'd like to address the elephant in the room. This band has a reputation for being Led Zeppelin clones, and I want to talk about that because I really don't think that this band deserves that type of label. So let me go back in time a little bit. When I was about a teenager, this is the late 80s, there was this band that came out, and they were called Kingdom Come. And they released their self-titled debut album, and they were immediately labeled as Led Zeppelin clones. And yes, granted, their debut album did sound a lot like Led Zeppelin, but for some reason the music community doesn't really forgive bands for sounding like Led Zeppelin. But there are so many other bands that sound like other bands. I can name a few. For example, the band Oasis, they sound like the Beatles. Crocus, they sound like AC/DC. Candlemass, they sound like Black Sabbath. And pretty much every thrash band out there sounds like one of the big four bands. So nobody ever criticizes them for being copycats, but for some reason, if you sound like Led Zeppelin, the media just jumps all over you and attacks you, and I don't really think it is justified. Now, I will say I do agree. Their first single, which came out in I think 2017, it was called Highway Tune, and yeah, it did sound like a Led Zeppelin song. But you got to keep in mind that these are young kids. They grew up listening to basically records from their parents' vinyl collection. 3 of them are brothers. I'm going to talk about that a little later. But you got to understand that most young musicians now are recording pop music. They're using auto-tune. They're using Pro Tools. And these are kids that are playing real instruments, playing real rock, real classic rock, blues rock. They've listened to all of the greats. They've studied all of these great musicians, all the ones that we love. And talk about us, my generation, the 40 to 50-year-olds. This band doesn't really get the credit that they deserve. So I wanted to start off my review by saying that. So that is my rant. But now I want to talk more about the band and then the album. So the band formed in Michigan in 2012 by twin brothers, Josh and Jake Kiszka, and also their younger brother, whose name is Sam. And they have another person on the band, his name is Kyle Hauck. They named the band Greta Van Fleet, and the name was derived from an old relative that they had, and they just kind of like changed the name a little bit. They released 2 EPs called Black Smoke Rising and From the Fires. In 2017, the band won Best Artist at the Loudwire Music Awards. In 2018, the band was nominated for 4 Grammy Awards. And their EP, From the Fires, won the award for the Best Rock Album at the Grammys. In 2018, they released their full debut album called Anthem of the Peaceful Army. And now I'm going to talk about this album. So let me talk about the album. I think this album definitely moves away from the Led Zeppelin sound. I mean, not too much. It's still present, but it does have an overall classic rock sound to it. Josh Kiszka's vocals do remind me a little more of Geddy Lee, and more from that like early Rush period. Think of an album like Fly By Night. I don't really hear too much of a Robert Plant influence on his vocals. And as far as the songs, I hear an influence from like the Rolling Stones, the Black Crowes. I know they are a 90s band, but I do hear that influence. I do hear also a Deep Purple influence. They use keyboards and organs throughout many of the songs. And as far as the guitar playing, I do hear a big blues rock influence, and most notably an influence from like Eric Clapton, Keith Richards, and Jimmy Page. So these are all like big hitters. So if you are a fan of any of them, you would definitely like this album. So the album is fairly long. It has a runtime of 63 minutes with 12 tracks. They released a few singles prior to the release of the album. They released My Way Soon in October 2020, and they released Age of Machine in December 2020, but I'm only going to talk about my 5 favorite songs from the album, just so I can keep this review at a respectable length. So the first song I want to talk about is called Heat Above, and this starts out with some organ playing, the drums kick in, and this band just like starts jamming. It's a really good like blues rock song. The guitar and the keyboards, they really go very well together. The vocals on the song again remind me of Geddy Lee, like I mentioned before. I really like the parts where you can just hear like the acoustic guitar and not any of the other instruments. I think that really like adds, you know, to the variety of the song. And you know, this is really one of my favorites. The next track I want to talk about is called Built by Nations, and this has a really cool blues rock influence. I immediately hear like a Jimi Hendrix like in the intro. The drums, it's really good. And you know, I'm trying to avoid mentioning Led Zeppelin throughout this, but it does remind me of John Bonham's playing. So if you do like, you know, John Bonham's like drum fills and his style, I think that's kind of represented on this song. They have some backup vocals and that adds to the song. The guitar solo is really good, and it just really captures the sound of 70s rock. I do hear a little bit of like a progressive rock influence, but it's not really too much. The next song is called Tears of Rain, and this is an acoustic ballad. And the song that immediately comes to mind is the song Angie by the Rolling Stones. Now that's just because of the intro. I mean, once the band kicks in, you know, the song takes on like a whole life of its own. But one thing I like about this song is the bass. I mean, the bass really, you know, you can hear it very clearly, and I really like the tone. There's some piano, there's some keyboard, and there's also like an interlude that has like where they play like a piano. That one reminded me a little of a song like Layla, and I really like it a lot. The song has some bluesy lead guitar work, and I really like this song, so this is another good one. The next song I want to talk about is called Light My Love, and it starts out with some piano, and you think it's going to be a ballad, but no, it's just another blues rock song. And this one does remind me a lot of like the Black Crowes or even Rolling Stones. Really good rock song. I think it's more of a laid back song. It's not too heavy. It's not like a heavy rock song. It's a very melodic blues rock song. This one definitely shows off their musicianship, and also one of the better songs on the album. The last song I want to talk about is called The Weight of Dreams, and this is also the longest song. It's almost 9 minutes long. The song has a classic rock feel. It's a mid-tempo rocker. There is a little bit of a progressive rock feel to it. Some really good lead guitar playing, and I do hear some orchestra parts in the background. And this song and the album in general has a really good like production value. And the guitar solo, it's really awesome. You know, I do hear the Jimmy Page influence on the guitar solo, and that's not a complaint, it's a compliment. The song in general is basically one long jam session, and in the end of the song there's like this short like acoustic guitar passage, and that's just the perfect way to end this album. So in conclusion, I recommend this album if you're a fan of classic rock and you're looking for a new band that's playing like the style of music that you like from, you know, many years ago. There are not a lot of bands doing it, so that's kind of why I think, even though that this band is derivative of many classic rock bands, they are one of the few young bands putting out new music in this style. So in that way, it does make them very unique. I give this album a score of a 9 out of 10. If you're interested in purchasing it on vinyl, it is a double vinyl, and I checked on Amazon. It's a really good price. So I think this would be a good album for you to check out, give it a listen, or pick it up and add it to your collection. That's it. Let me know in the comments, do you think of this album? Have you heard it, or have you heard the singles? So let's get some a conversation going in the comments section. Tomorrow I will be doing the new Offspring album. After that, I will be doing the new Cannibal Corpse album. Tomorrow I will also be doing my contest drawing for my 300 subscriber contest. So for those of you who entered, you know, please look out for that. Please check out my in-video links. They should be appearing right there. And I will see you in the next one.